Hey, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Jay.
And today we're going to make a raised planter box for our backyard garden. So why a raised planter box? Well, first, I'm pregnant and it's really hard to lean over, so I didn't want to do that. Other reasons, we're quarantined right now and we don't want to see anyone or go to the grocery store, so we figured we'd grow our own food and veggies.
This is like the 10th time we've tried to have a garden.
We're learning how to garden. We've been learning how to garden for years, but one day we're gonna get it.
Also, if the apocalypse happens, we'll have some vegetables for like 2 days.
In like 2 months. So this is a really good plan.
This is a long-term investment. Since it's an outdoor planter, we wanted to build it out of a material that works really well outdoors, so we chose cedar. And we're actually gonna use rough-sawn cedar 2x4s and then just regular fence pickets.
So there are like a million different ways to build a planter box. So we looked at a bunch of them online, picked out a style we liked, decided we wanted to go for kind of a modern look, drew up some plans, and then went with it.
In fact, those very same plans, the ones we used, are available in the description below. You should check them out. And while you're at it, if you liked the video, please hit that like button, leave us a comment, and definitely subscribe to the Wicked Makers channel. We make awesome stuff all the time, and you definitely want to see it.
And hit that little bell, and then you'll know every time one of our videos comes out, because I know you want to see it as soon as it happens.
You ready?
Do it.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
I mentioned we use rough-sawn cedar to build the planter box. What that means is that nobody has planed it down or sanded it yet, so the wood is usually a little more affordable at the store, and all you got to do to get it looking nice is to sand it down so you get a nice smooth surface. We do a lot of woodworking, so we've invested in a planer, and that makes it really easy for us to do it. But if you don't have a planer, it's totally fine. All you got to do is use a sander, and here's how we did that as an example. You can see that it produces the same exact result. One of them's just a lot quicker, so use whatever tool you have on hand and you can easily get the same look.
Once we got the pieces for the frame looking real nice, we squared off one of the edges, measured it, and then cut them all to length.
To build the slats that make up the side of the planter box, we're using actual cedar fence pickets. Like, these are literally from the pile that you would use to build a fence with. As usual, the first thing we do is we square up one end. We then measure the length and we cross-cut it to its size. We also need them to be a little thinner, so we're gonna rip them down on the table saw, which you could also use a circular saw if you don't have a table saw. But we want to rip both sides so that we get a nice straight edge on both the left and the right side. To do that, we start off by ripping one edge, and then finally setting it to our final width, and then ripping the second edge. That's going to give us a nice straight edge on all 4 sides of these boards. Next thing we did was we took a router and we put a chamfer on the long edges of each of these pieces, just to give it a nice little detail.
To assemble our planter box, we're going to use pocket holes. And pocket holes are great because they're super strong, they're really easy to do, and the best part is you don't see them from the outside.
The last step for the slats was to sand them down nice and smooth. Now, we sanded to 180 grit. It didn't take too long, and it looks really nice when it's all said and done, so it's definitely worth the effort.
So now that our wood was all cut to size and looking real pretty, it was time to put on finish. For the frame, we used a really dark gray, almost black exterior paint. We used a foam roller to apply it just so we didn't get brush strokes, and we ended up going with 2 coats.
For the cedar slats, we wanted to maintain a more natural look, so we used a spar varnish, which is like a great exterior finish for things like this. We applied it with a thin bristled brush, did about 3 coats, gave it a couple days to dry, and it looked absolutely awesome.
So once all the wood was dry, we laid it all out on the table so we could decide what pattern we wanted our wood to be in the final product. Now, this is one of those basic things. It only takes a few minutes, but it really makes a huge difference in the end product.
Finally, it was time to assemble everything, and we started off by flipping all the pieces upside down, and then we wanted the back of the slats to line up flush with the back of the corner posts. So to do that, we just put a piece of wood under it and kind of shimmed it to get the height of it perfect, and then we used the pocket screws to attach them. We started with the long sides first, and then we started at the very top and just slowly worked our way down until all 4 of the slats were connected to both the left and the right side.
The next step was attaching the sides. So what we did here was we took the long side, flipped it upside down. Then we took one of our slats and lined it up using an extra piece of wood, just like we did before. And then starting from the bottom, we just screwed them right in.
Luckily, everything went together pretty easily. We didn't have any major issues. We did have to make sure that everything was nice and square as we were putting it together. And then the one thing that we noticed was when we drilled the pocket holes to attach the very top part of the frame, the hole was kind of outside and kind of in the way of where we would have put the slats. So we had to move them over just a little bit. Small design flaw, but we worked around it. It was no big deal. We then took the second pre-assembled long end, aligned everything, made sure it was square, and attached all the screws.
We lifted it off the table, flipped it over, and got our first look of how it was going to look all assembled.
So this thing's going to have hundreds of pounds of dirt in it, and if we didn't support the middle in any way, the sides are going to bow out. So to do that, we use battens that attach to the inside of the slats, and they kind of secure them in place and give it a little more strength. To attach them, we just cut a couple of pieces of cedar to the right length, put a little bit of wood glue on there, and then screw to screw into each board. Once we attached a batten to both the front and the back, we then put some rails along the bottom that are going to be the supports for the bottom slats. To do this, we just took some of the scrap cedar that we had left over from the earlier parts of the build, we cut them down to size and then attached them at the bottom, but we put them at a slight angle so that the water will sort of run towards the middle and create better drainage. They're attached the same as they were before with a little bit of wood glue and a bunch of screws along the edge. For the slats that go along that bottom rail, we cut a bunch of pieces from the leftover fence pickets that we had, and obviously nobody's going to see this under hundreds of pounds of dirt, so we didn't need to sand them or anything like that, but we did leave a little gap in between each one so that we could promote proper drainage.
So now that all the woodworking was complete, it was time to do the final layers inside the planter box. So the first layer we did was chicken wire, and this helps give it extra strength and helps keep it from collapsing between all the little holes in the slats of the wood. Now, chicken wire is super bendable, so we were able to just kind of smush it down in there, and then we stapled along all the edges.
Smush and staple.
Smush and staple.
Repeat.
After the chicken wire, we use landscape fabric. Now this is for letting water through, but it also holds the dirt in, so that's why it's really nice. Same deal, we only put it on the bottom layer and then we smushed it down and stapled it in. Finally, we did a layer of black plastic. Now this layer went all the way up the sides to keep the final dirt in from leaking out the sides. It also helps protect the wood from moisture.
My favorite thing about this is that it's super easy to make, it's using really basic materials, and gosh, it just looks so awesome.
Thanks for staying with us, y'all. Really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember hit that like button, leave us a comment, and subscribe. It really, really helps us out. And until next time, stay wicked. Now we arrange them in an...
Is that nobody's planned it. Bleh.
Hi, I'm Jaimie.
And I'm Jay.
And we're gonna make a wicked awesome planter box.
Boom.